The data in this video confirms the Canadian real estate market is not crashing, but rebounding. Hey there, and welcome back to 𝗲𝗶𝗱 Real Estate. My name is 𝗳𝗲𝗿𝗃, real estate agent in Regina. That's my trusted assistant, Matilda. This is the weekly Canadian real estate news recap, where I give my thoughts and opinions on the week's most interesting news topics. I've got one I want to talk about this week: why Vancouver should be as expensive a real estate market as it is. And I've got some stats here that I believe prove why the Canadian real estate market is rebounding. I talked about that in last month's Canadian real estate market update. But before we get into talking about the news, I'm going to be taking a week or two off from these weekly news recaps to spend some time with family over the holidays here. But I do have a video or two that I'm planning on putting out that I think you are really going to enjoy, so keep your eye out for that. And because this is coming out just around the Christmas time, I wanted to say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all of you. Thank you for all of your support over the past year. And because it's Christmas, let's do a Christmas bad dad joke. Why does Santa have 3 gardens? So he can ho, ho, ho. If you have a terrible joke I can use in a future episode, put it in the comments below. Let's get into this week's news. Fast pause here. You're ready to buy a house, but you don't have a great real estate agent? Don't worry, I can handpick one for you from my great network of agents anywhere in the country. If you look in the description of this video, there's a link to my calendar where you can book me for an agent consultation, and I'm going to find you the perfect agent. Starting off, let's talk about the Stats Canada inflation numbers for the month. The headline inflation dropped back down to 1.9%, while a lot of economists are saying expect some volatility in that number going forward here. This likely gives the Bank of Canada more reason to continue their rate cutting policy. They have indicated that's what they plan on doing, although those rate cuts they've kind of indicated are going to be smaller, so likely instead of 50 basis point cuts, 25 basis cuts instead. The core metrics, which the Bank of Canada likes to look at about 2.6%, essentially unchanged. When it comes to shelter costs, that is one of the biggest drivers of inflation, still up about 4.5%. Higher interest rates from late 2023 and early 2024 still impacting that number. Rent is also up 7.5%. Again, asking rents are dropping right now, but that just hasn't been reflected in this year-over-year change yet. The massive elephant in the room is, of course, the threat of tariffs from the US government right now and a very weak and declining Canadian dollar. Both of those would put upward pressure on inflation. We'll have to wait and see what happens in 2025 with those. Now let's look at the most common complaints against realtors in BC. This is the first time ever the BC Financial Authority has made official complaint information public. So they're talking about the number of complaints, about 1,200 last fiscal year, and the nature of those complaints. I am still doing a video that's going to give you a behind the scenes look at how this process works when somebody actually goes and makes an official complaint against a realtor. I'm going to be using my own personal situation where I had somebody file a complaint against me as an example of that video. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss that video when it comes out. The most common complaint, about 20%, was misinformation and misrepresentation by real estate agents. Second was deceptive marketing practices at 17%. All the provincial regulators make these complaints public. So if you want to go look up a specific agent case, you can always go to your provincial regulator and look that up online. Let's take a quick look at the most recent CMHC housing starts numbers. This stat is a 6-month rolling average, and it can be a little volatile. There was about 240,000 starts tracked by CMHC. Now, these have been declining through the year, and I expected it actually to be lower by this point this year. I thought we would see a number in the low 200,000, potentially even below 200,000 by this time. We are seeing, though, as well, a number of starts that are essentially on pause, or the project has gone bankrupt, so they're not resulting in completions that people can move into. 80% of the starts tracked by CMHC were purpose-built rentals, townhouses, and apartment-style condos. We are simply not building very many single-family homes in Canada. In a previous video, I argued that the path we're going down is where single-family homes will become only for the rich and elite if we continue this trend. Vancouver, once again, ranks in the top 10 most desirable cities in the world. If you're wondering why yourself, why is the Vancouver real estate market so expensive? It continues to be the most expensive in Canada and one of the most expensive in the world. I'd make the argument it's because it should be. Hear me out for a second here. Anytime you look at a top 10 list, most desirable, most livable, most beautiful, best place to visit, Vancouver consistently ranks in the top 10 year after year after year. You also have it being geographically bound by the ocean, the mountains, and the US border. So yes, there's an argument to be made about Vancouver's density, absolutely. But interestingly enough, per square foot, Vancouver doesn't typically rank in the top 10 most expensive cities in Canada. When you have a world-class city though, world-class desirability, and the constraints I just talked about, do you not also expect they would have world-class prices to go with it? Let's go through this week's best mortgage interest rates. Remember that these do vary by province, so I've tried to kind of find options that are available to everybody. And the lowest interest rate isn't always the best mortgage. I've done an explainer video on that. You should absolutely check that out if you haven't already. Link in the description and one of those pop-up cards. Starting with the insured side of things, the best 3-year, 4.29 through Radius, unchanged. The best 5-year fixed, 4.19 through Radius, also unchanged. The best 5-year adjustable, 4.45 through Marathon, unchanged. The best static, 4.5% through Manulife, unchanged. On the insured side of things, the best 3-year through B2B, 4.69%, unchanged. The best 5-year fixed, 4.69 through Manulife and B2B, unchanged. On the variable side of things, the best 5-year static I could find, 4.9% through Scotia, and the best adjustable rate mortgage, 4.85 through Merrick, and that is just a slight drop from last week. When it comes to the big 5 banks, here are the best 5-year fixed insurable mortgage rates, and there's not a lot of changes. BMO, 4.45, unchanged. CIBC, 4.59, unchanged. RBC, 4.59, unchanged. Scotiabank, 4.69, unchanged. TD, 4.84, a very small drop from last week. Looking at the 5-year Canada bond rate, which of course determines fixed rates, that at the time of recording has trended up to 3.1%. A lot of political uncertainty, economic uncertainty, the weak Canadian dollar, a ton of factors playing into that right now. But as we've seen over the last basically 6 weeks, as that has gone up and down, the banks really haven't done much adjusting for both up and down yet. We'll have to see if that changes in the new year. It seems they're pretty content right now to just sit where they are. Here's an article about a Schedule B that had a significant impact on a transaction, helping the buyer. Here's a quick rundown of the facts. The buyer made an unconditional offer on a property. Where have we heard this story before? Unconditional offers ending up in lawsuits. That's because I did a video on it before. You should check it out. I'm going to put a link in the description below and one of the pop-up cards where it cost this buyer $350,000 to not buy a house. The sellers received that offer from the buyer and signed an agreement to it, but also sent back to the buyers a Schedule B. And in the listing, it said the Schedule B had to be part of the contract. The buyer never signed that Schedule B. The next morning, the buyer woke up and basically said, yeah, I don't want to buy this house anymore, family reasons, whatever, and tried to send the sellers a mutual release on their $50,000 deposit. The seller said, no, we're keeping your deposit. Now, typically, if you make an unconditional offer, or once you've removed all conditions on a conditional offer, the seller is entitled to keep the buyer's deposit if they do not complete on that transaction. And that's what they tried to do in this case here. They ended up having to sell the house for $25,000 less than what the original offer was agreed upon. When this went to court, the courts actually sided with the buyers because the buyer never signed that Schedule B, and in the listing, it was described as to be part of the offer. So in the court's eyes, that Schedule B was essentially a counteroffer because it was not signed by the buyers. It was not a binding contract at that point, and the buyer got to keep their $50,000 deposit. Let's go through the most recent monthly stats from the Canadian Real Estate Association. In my most recent monthly Canadian real estate market update, I said the Canadian real estate market was rebounding. And of course, a few people took exception to that in the comment section. Now, this is more proof that that theory is correct. If you want to check out the video, if you haven't already, link that in the description below, pop-up card there, you know the drill, go check that video out. We'll look at the November highlights here before getting into some of the charts. Month over month, sales up 2.8%. That generally does not happen October to November. Sales are up 26% versus 2023. Now again, 2023, one of the lowest months for sales or years for sales we've had on record. New listings down 0.5%. The home price index also increased 0.6% month over month. Again, doesn't typically happen this time of year. It is still down 1.2% year over year. And average price is up 7.4% year over year. We'll dig into that in just a second here. Looking at the sales chart here, you can see they're above the 10-year trend line, and it is continuing to trend up right now. Here's the national average price, clearly trending up. It did drop about $1,000 month over month. Since the summer, it's up close to $50,000. Generally, it's trending down, not up in the back half of the year. Looking at the home price index, you can see single family 2 stories trending up. Composite benchmark price, combining all property types, trending up. Townhouses are flat. Single family bungalows trending up. apartments trending down. Looking at the market balance chart here, for the first time since spring of 2023, sales to new listing ratio is above months of inventory. Now let's dive into average price, because for the first time since I've been talking about these CREA stats on my videos, every province in Canada has seen a year-over-year price increase, including Ontario. BC up 2%, Ontario up about 4.5%, Manitoba 14%, Alberta 11.5%, Saskatchewan up 11%, Quebec up 11%, New Brunswick up about 12.5%, Newfoundland up 11%. So 6 out of 10 Canadian provinces not only saw increases, saw double-digit increases in the average price. You can absolutely make the argument that this trend won't continue in 2025 for a variety of reasons. But I see no way you look at this information and not come to the conclusion that the Canadian real estate market currently is in a rebound phase. What do I think is going to happen going into 2025? Well, you're going to have to wait for my 2025 predictions video. I will have that out in early January. So again, get subscribed so you don't miss that video when I release it. While you're waiting for that predictions video, right here is my most recent monthly Canadian real estate market. And I want to end this off by saying Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year, and thanks very much for watching.